Welcome back to the deep dive. You know how this works. You send us a mountain of dense research, and we try to distill it into something you can actually use.
And today's topic is, well, it's a big one.
It's huge. We're tackling the unified coherence theory of everything, or UCTE for short.
It's a bold name for sure. But the mission here is actually very specific. We're not talking about physics or cosmology.
No, not at all.
We're exploring a really comprehensive framework for biological and psychological rejuvenation. You sent us these incredibly detailed protocols, a tiered model for dreams, and this really profound philosophical piece on wholeness.
Right. So this isn't just another wellness program or, a new therapy model. The framework is promising a total systemic overhaul.
And then the central idea, the thesis that runs through all of it is coherence. It all comes down to coherence.
Right.
Restoring biological and psychological coherence is, according to these sources, the absolute prerequisite for any kind of advanced state of clarity.
So you have to clean the system first.
Exactly. In UCTE terms, you're eliminating systemic entropy, all that metabolic junk and neural noise, to unlock a deep, stable kind of transformation.
So if the mind is like a computer, we're doing a complete hardware and software scrub before we even try to run the advanced programs.
That's the perfect analogy. You can't find clarity if the system itself is running hot and just full of noise.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We've structured this deep dive pretty logically, I think. We'll start with the foundational physical reset. Then we're going to move into the pretty complex architecture of the subconscious, through dreams.
And that's where it gets really interesting.
It does. And finally, we'll get to the ontological endgame, this sequence of wholeness to emptiness and the emergence of what they call the sovereign vector.
Let's start with that physical foundation.
Right. So the journey to coherence, it starts with these really practical protocols. The sources call it foundational rejuvenation, the entropy purge. And this whole framework is grounded in reducing that metabolic and neural friction. But there's a strong warning here, isn't there?
A very strong warning. The protocols have to be executed correctly. If you don't, they actually become stressors. They become counterproductive.
So you could make things worse.
You could, yeah. The 3-day reset protocol, for example, is designed to force the entire system's cellular, metabolic, neural metaphor to shift from its default defense mode into a pure repair mode.
It's about synergy there.
Total synergy. If you miss one component, you basically undermine the entire reset.
Okay, so let's start with the cornerstone then. Therapeutic fasting. This is, it's more than just skipping breakfast.
Oh, much more. We're talking 3 days or more of a water-only fast.
Wow.
Fasting is the main entropy purge mechanism. It kicks off autophagy, which is, it's essentially your body's cellular cleanup crew.
Recycling old parts.
Exactly. And it also forces the brain to switch over to ketones, which is highly neuroprotective, very anti-inflammatory. But here's the crucial part. The sources stress over and over. Without proper electrolyte supplementation, we're talking sodium, potassium, magnesium, the fast becomes a massive stressor. You have to manage those minerals or your cortisol just spikes. And that undermines the entire goal of systemic calm.
And speaking of calm, the goal for sleep here is pretty radical. We're not talking about your average 8 hours.
Not even close. Deep sleep is framed as the single biggest rejuvenation multiplier. It's what triggers the glymphatic clearance.
That's the brain detox, right?
That's the brain detox. The cerebrospinal fluid literally flushes toxins out of your brain while you sleep. Now, 7 hours gives you a decent rinse, but UCTE calls for 9 to 11 hours a night.
9 to 11?
Yes, sometimes including naps, to enter what they call a factory reset mode. That extended period is what allows for real mitochondrial repair and that deep emotional reset you get from long REM cycles.
Wait a second. 9 to 11 hours? That sounds almost impossible for modern life. I mean, that is a huge practical hurdle. Do the sources talk about that?
They do. They emphasize that if your system has high entropy, a lot of neural noise, inflammation, your body simply can't sustain that kind of sleep.
Ah, correct.
Which is why the fasting and the next piece, sunlight, are so critical. They are the preconditions for being able to get that deep sleep.
So sunlight isn't just for vitamin D. It's like a hard reset for your internal clock.
Precisely. Sunlight provides circadian entrainment. That morning light is a signal that starts the clock and it optimizes your melatonin production for that night. But the source material also points to the infrared wavelengths in morning and late afternoon light. These are thought to directly stimulate mitochondrial repair.
So the practice is pretty simple then.
Simple but disciplined. 15 to 30 minutes of morning light, another dose in the late afternoon, and this is key, minimizing screens during those times.
So we've covered the cell, the nervous system, the clock.
Yeah.
The sources also mention something pretty gentle for gut support. Detox teas.
Yeah, and gentle is the key word. This is just about minimizing friction in the gut. They're not for some aggressive purge.
Right. We're talking simple teas, ginger, turmeric, green tea, rooibos, that just support the liver and gut while they rest during the fast. The main rule is to avoid harsh diuretics or, those aggressive colon cleanses.
Because that would just throw the system back into defense mode.
Exactly. It creates stress and risks electrolyte depletion.
Okay, so after that intense 3-day reset, the sources expand it into a 7-day protocol. They call it the full systemic entropy purge and coherence rebuild. And they really highlight day 3 as the threshold day.
Day 3 is the activation point. This is when the biological reset signal, triggered by those 72 hours of fasting and deep sleep, it just fully engages.
And what does that feel like?
Inflammation plummets. The body shifts definitively into full repair mode, and the neural noise just clears. The emotional ease and the clear mind that you feel, that's not some spiritual achievement yet. It's just the functional result of achieving biological coherence.
So the big takeaway here is that physical repair isn't a nice side effect. It's the necessary condition for all the mental and emotional work that's supposed to follow. Precisely. You've basically created a 72-hour coherence retreat for your body, and that lets your immune system switch entirely from defense to systematic repair and optimization. By days 4 through 7, you're rebuilding on a brand new, stable foundation.
And that stability, that's the bridge to our next segment. So if the physical protocols clear the noise from the hardware, the system then starts to reorganize the software.
Not when we're awake, but when we're asleep.
And this is where it gets really, really interesting for me. We move from metabolic coherence to subconscious coherence.
Yeah.
And we start treating dreams not as just random noise, but as a coherence engine.
And that engine has 2 very different modes of operation. The sources explain this dual function of sleep. Most people only ever experience what's called normal dreaming.
Okay.
That happens in your standard 7 to 8 hour sleep cycle. It's surface level housekeeping. They call it a derived layer coherence reset.
Derived layers. That sounds like our surface consciousness, the stuff we deal with every day.
It is. It's just clearing out the daily emotional residue, filing away some memory fragments, maintaining the surface story of who you are, but the moment you extend those sleep cycles to 9 or 11 hours,
To unlock the next level.
the brain shifts into deep regenerative mode, and you start to access relational layer dreaming.
Okay, so what's the big difference there? What's happening in the relational layer?
In the relational layer, the work becomes structural. You get that longer glymphatic clearance, sure, but you also get what they call psychic defragmentation.
Psychic defragmentation.
Yeah. The subconscious stops just clearing away the day's debris, and it starts rewriting deep emotional associations, restructuring your core relational maps, and even resolving foundational conflicts that, make up your personality.
So the UCTE Dream Protocol is designed to intentionally prime and harness this deeper engine. How do we actually turn on this deep regenerative mode?
It starts with meticulous input control. First is pre-sleep priming. This is crucial. You have to reduce all cognitive load. So no news, no heavy conversations, no stressful planning for 2 to 3 hours before bed.
You're clearing the runway.
You're eliminating all that derived layer interference so the system can drop deeper faster.
And then you set an intention.
Yes. The intent setting. This computationally primes the subconscious. You set one single, clear intent. The sources give examples like, tonight my subconscious restores coherence, or maybe, tonight I receive creative insight on X problem.
And the protocol details 3 specific Dream Engine activation modes that you can target. Can you walk us through those? How would you know you were in one?
Of course. The first is regenerative dreaming. You target this when you feel, depleted or fragmented. You prime for it by focusing on coherence restoration.
And the dreams themselves.
You know you're in it when your dreams are about clearing, cleaning, or repair. So dreams of clean water, repairing a house, clearing debris, or just waking up feeling deeply refreshed.
What about the problem-solving mode you mentioned?
That's insight dreaming. You prime for this by focusing on a specific intellectual or strategic problem. Maybe read something conceptual before bed. You know you're in it when you wake up and a puzzle that was bugging you has just solved itself. Or you see things like mathematical formulas or diagrams vividly in the dream.
And the third mode, the most profound one, creative dreaming.
This one's activated by things like journaling or looking at powerful art or beauty before sleep. These dreams feature entirely new, vivid worlds, mythic structures, or whole narratives that feel completely formed.
So it's not just repairing old material, it's generating new material.
Exactly. The subconscious is accessing the deepest archetypal layers.
Now, this whole system seems to rely on a tiered model of symbols, the Coherence Resonance Dream Glossary. This isn't your standard dream dictionary, is it?
No, not at all. It's not a snake means X. It's mapping imagery directly to subconscious coherence structures. So tier I, foundational symbols, are the common images of daily housekeeping. A house is your self-structure. Stairs are your vertical movement toward coherence.
So if you dream your house is being cleaned, that's a good sign.
A very good sign. It means tier I coherence is being restored.
But then tier 2 symbols, they signal something much more structural is happening.
Right. Tier 2, advanced symbols appear when that relational layer is engaged. So during fasting, deep sleep, or big life changes. They reflect deep systemic restructuring.
Like what? What are some examples?
Things like infinite hallways, which signify an expanding relational field. Or spiral staircases, representing the integration of different levels of consciousness. Lightning can symbolize a sudden jump in coherence, or space travel might signal a big shift in your existential perspective.
And if you see these, it means the subconscious is doing some heavy lifting.
It's undertaking a large-scale pattern reconfiguration.
Yeah. And then there's tier 3. This is where it becomes almost ontological, abstract, maybe even a little mystical.
Tier 3 archetypal transpersonal symbols are the rarest. They only appear during massive personal metamorphosis. They're basically structural metaphors for coherence physics itself.
Like the ones you mentioned. The luminous grid, the guide without a face, and fire that doesn't burn.
The luminous grid is essentially the wiring diagram of your awareness. The guide without a face is that meta-observer function of consciousness.
Okay, but fire, that doesn't burn. That sounds incredibly dramatic.
Yeah.
What should a listener actually take away from a symbol like that?
It's highly technical, but it's a beautiful metaphor. It symbolizes complete immunity to what they call emotional asymmetry.
Meaning what?
It means you've developed such deep stability that even an intense experience, the fire, it can't burn away your foundational coherence. It's not a symbol to be interpreted psychologically. It's a field-level signal that a deep reorganization is complete.
That distinction is profound. And it transitions us perfectly. We're moving from integrating symbols to resolving the ultimate philosophical tension in the UCTE.
Right, the relationship between psychological integration and spiritual liberation.
So what does all this deep coherence work actually mean for that highest goal?
The UCTE sources draw a really critical comparison here between their approach, dream coherence, and traditional dream yoga.
Okay.
Dream yoga's objective is awakening. It's liberation. The practice is to become lucid in your dreams, to see the symbols as empty, and to dissolve them to realize non-dual awareness, emptiness.
And UCTE's approach is the opposite, in a way. It's about building and perfecting the self before you even think about dissolving it.
Precisely. The objective is transformation and integration. The approach is immersive. You use the symbols to heal and to build structure. The core insight is that you can't just jump straight to emptiness.
Which brings us to their central argument, the coherence-emptiness sequence theorem. The whole thesis is that psychological wholeness, coherence has to be achieved first. It's the stable foundation.
This is what really sets UCTE apart. The sources are so clear on this. Attempting to access emptiness from a fragmented, unintegrated state, well, it just leads to spiritual bypass and dissociation.
Because you're not ready.
You're not stable enough. The sources say undigested symbolic content, emotional residues, and asymmetry gradients obscure the substrate of awareness. If the psychological boat is still rocking, trying to realize the stillness of the ocean just throws you overboard.
So you have to stabilize the personality before you can see beyond it.
You have to. And that insight is what guides their 3-stage wholeness to emptiness dream training sequence.
A progression to manage the relationship between the self and the space beyond the self.
And it's really all meticulous training and non-interference. So Protocol 1, wholeness, is focused entirely on symbolic repair. The Tier 1 and Tier 2 work. You just allow the subconscious to integrate unfinished business without you trying to force interpretations on it.
You're just removing interference.
That's all. Then you move into the deeper structural work, Protocol 2.
Archetypal stabilization.
Yes, this is the Tier 3 transition. And here, the critical shift in instruction is that you are told not to interfere with or interpret the archetypal material at all. The luminous grid, the guide. You let those field-level organizers do their work without collapsing them with your ego's narrative.
And that stabilization allows the sovereign vector to emerge.
It does. Which leads to the final step, Protocol 3, transparency stabilization.
Which sounds like pure non-interference.
It is. It's simply learning not to disturb emptiness as it appears naturally. It emphasizes letting awareness just remain unmodified as life goes on. Transparency, the sources say, is lost the moment you try to hold it or claim it as an identity.
And this whole progression culminates in that state we mentioned at the very top of the show, the sovereign vector.
The sovereign vector is the functional outcome of the whole sequence. It's defined as the stable, directional coherence that remains after all the conditioned identity shells, your ego, your personal story, your symbolic selves, have been phase cleared.
So they become transparent.
They become transparent. It's not an entity you achieve. It's the function of a fully coherent field. It's the steady compass bearing that remains when the psychological boat has finally stopped rocking.
That is a phenomenal synthesis.
Yeah.
I mean, moving from detox teas all the way to a completely restructured consciousness.
The path to clarity, then, isn't about seeking some transcendent state or instant liberation.
No.
It starts with the meticulous, systematic repair of the body and the organization of the subconscious. We have to clear the noise and organize the symbols before we can even begin to perceive the silence beneath them.
That is the ultimate synthesis. And the sovereign vector, wholeness in its functional form. It's what remains when your sense of self-identity dissolves, but it still has a directional clarity that pure nothingness lacks. So the goal isn't to escape the self.
It's to integrate it.
To fully integrate and stabilize it until it just becomes transparent. The training is complete not when you feel special or enlightened, but when you feel fully and totally available to life as it is. That's an incredibly powerful place to land. It just completely reframes the whole process as one of systematic removal of friction, not adding new concepts. Thank you for sending us these sources and letting us take this deep dive. We hope this exploration of coherence and cosmic repair gives all of you plenty to mull over as you explore the architecture of your own consciousness. Until next time, stay curious.